some things have happened. All right. I shot this, I uploaded it, but as it turns out, it really didn't need to be uploaded. It wasn't finished. And I had thought, well, I'll just do another part two like I've done so many times before. But I decided against that. So I'm going to actually put all this stuff together and I'm going to include a couple of extra bits so you get the whole story. It's about a guitar that was not ready for the Wednesday night info show. Now, maybe it is. The not ready for the Wednesday night info show, the Loog. All right, y'all. This may be the silliest one yet. This one actually started off in my local pawn shop. I was in there looking at minis and other guitars and mini things, and I saw this cigar box guitar, this little 3-string thing. And I thought, man, how much fun would that be? You know, it's small, you can take it with you. And then I got it home and I realized somebody had forgotten to put a nut on it. So I went online and I did some research and I figured out you can just use a pencil. So me and a trusty number 2 Ticonderoga set out to make my first slide guitar. Well, let's just put it this way. It really didn't work out. Whoever had put together the kit had basically just sold it through the pawn shop and it didn't go well for me at all. So then I decided I was going to try to see if I could find myself a really good cigar box guitar. And I looked online at some of the custom luthiers that make them and I realized you can spend $2, $3, $4, sometimes up to $500 for one. And you can get resonators and you can get all types of pickups in them. And you can basically have just about anything you want. So what do I really want? I want a 3-string guitar that I can play slide. Of course, it'd be kind of a lot more fun if it was shaped like a Telecaster. I give you the Loog. The Wednesday night info show. If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. They're all toys. So why not go ahead and move into the toyest of the toys and pick up one of these things that's specifically designed for kids. You know, those young players. The top 3 strings are supposed to be strung like the lowest 3 strings on a guitar, so that way you can get used to making those patterns and learn some triads and supposedly take whatever you learn here and apply it to work on a larger instrument. It's a teaching tool. And once you figure out you have to do the math and the places where your fingers are supposed to go is kind of close to where they used to go, it's not entirely frustrating. I wouldn't necessarily describe it as fun just yet. But since that's not why I got it, ultimately, is it what I expected? It was exactly what I thought it was going to be, which is a good thing. I just went ahead and ran it through the usual setup. Okay, it's not a usual setup because I'm using different strings, 2 13s and a 17. That may tip out what's going to happen. Basically cut the strings, put graphite in the nut, buff the frets, clean up the fret ends, polish the guitar. This is new because it had a battery in the back of it and it needed to be set. And I checked it with my tongue with made sure that I knew it was working okay. Yeah, that's me. Then I had to raise the saddle height. That'll come into play later on. So everything's good to go, right? Usual setup. Let's go ahead and trot this baby out and see what it can do. Except there's a huge problem at one end of the string and an even bigger problem at the other end of the string. All right, so as I try to use this as a slide guitar and tune it to an open chord, I've got an issue because the thickest string, the one at the top, 17, is a full step out of tune at the 12th fret. The other two are close to being in tune at the 12th fret, but I can't adjust the intonation enough to make that 17 gauge string work. And it's not the gauge of the string, it's the nut. The nut is in bad shape. So, because I've got a problem at one end, I've got a major problem at the other end. So the only way you can really play it is if you just drone, kind of like a dulcimer. This is where we go back to the cigar box guitar. Remember how I mentioned they didn't put a nut in it, and so I had to cut up a number 2 pencil and basically put that in there? Well, in order to figure out if the problem was because the bridge was in the wrong place or if I had a problem with the nut, I decided to test out a couple of 0 fret options. The Ticonderoga, the wood, wouldn't hold tune. The metal part of the screwdriver did. So, it's time to look around and see what we can find. Okay, I checked online. This has been my biggest fear, replacing a nut. And there was no glue. I didn't need to clear it with an X-Acto knife. I didn't need to heat it up with a heat gun or to use a wooden block to gently tap it out of place. As a matter of fact, all I had to do was reach in with my fingers, pinch it, and pull it out of the neck of the guitar. If I hadn't decided to reuse these strings that I put on it just a few days ago, this would have taken me all of maybe 4 minutes. All told, it took me 6. And the thing that complicated it more than anything else was trying to figure out how to hold the nut in place while I tried to get the strings back in the tuning keys. Generations of luthiers have figured out all you have to do is get it in place and the string tension will hold it there by itself. I kid you not. If I hadn't tried to reuse the strings, this would have taken so much less time. But as it is, I figured I'd just speed up the 6 minutes, let y'all see it. And bingo bango, there we go. Okay, so the first thing we had to do is take care of the nut. And once we got the nut taken care of, we had enough height on the strings on that end of the fretboard, and it was actually pretty stable as far as that height was concerned. But then we had to make sure to have height on this end to raise those saddles, so we had a consistent height of the strings all the way down the fretboard. That way you can move a slide all the way down without contacting the frets. Now the next thing that I had to fool with was the intonation, or the location of the saddles relative to the back of the bridge, or actually probably more accurately to the location of the nut. Because the issue that I ran into is on one string this was an octave, but on this string it was actually the 13th fret. So once I got the nut in shape and consistent, then I was able to adjust the saddles in order to keep it in tune. I know that's a lot of explanation, but here's the result. And that's it. Now I guess the Loog is ready for center stage. If I ever do one of those again.